Hey everybody, Mark here. Thanks so much for joining us for this Menlo moment. And I am so excited about this one because it features the story of Margaret and Tony, who are both in their early 90s and shares their story of a lifetime of servanthood to God, which includes them being high school sweethearts, moving abroad to Japan, as well as when they moved back here, launching and literally building the church that we worship at in Saratoga now. It is an inspiring story, and I know that you're going to get as much out of it as I did because there's a lot of lessons to be learned there, and we're so grateful for their willingness to share. And if you're listening to this as this comes out, you still have time to sign up for our Menlo 150 anniversary, which is happening on November 5th. That's Sunday, November 5th at 10:30 at Woodside High School. So we're all gathering in one location. If you show up to a campus that day, we will not have church there. We will all be at Woodside High School, and where we are celebrating our 150th year anniversary as one church all together in one location. So please sign up at menlo.church/Menlo150 if you haven't already. And if you can be there physically, great. If you need to be there through the internet, also great. We'll be streaming it. Come say hi to me in the chat. So I will see you there. And now let's go ahead and jump into this amazing Menlo moment.
Okay, and I'm Margaret.
And I'm Tony, and we're glad for this Menlo moment.
So thanks so much for being here. Margaret, we'll start with you. Where'd you grow up? What was your home life like? What was your family like?
Well, I grew up in Campbell.
Okay,
so
local
here. Mm-hmm. Actually, we both did. And I went through the schools in Campbell.
Okay.
My parents always went to church, though it wasn't something that was talked about a lot or was a part of, though my parents read their Bible every night, but it just wasn't something shared. Mm-hmm. I mean, we went to high school together, and we're high school sweethearts.
So you're high school sweethearts?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Campbell High School.
Campbell High School?
Campbell High.
Okay.
Yeah.
What year were you both in the same year? Or?
No, he was a couple years ahead of me.
Okay.
And we married. It was Korean War at the time. And anyway, so it's been a long journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what was your home life like? Did you grow up in a...
Well, I grew up in Campbell, too. My folks built a house in Campbell, and about 3 or 4 miles from Margaret's home, actually. Okay. So I went to a little school called Cambrian Grammar School. Mm-hmm. She went to Campbell Grammar School. Got it. And then we both went to Campbell High School. And my folks were Catholic, being of Italian descent, and I remember one time the priest came by driving in his little old car way back in the, I don't know, must have been the 30s, 40s, and said, I want your 2 sons in catechism on Saturday morning.
You said that to your parents?
My dad. Wow. And so we did. We went to catechism. Okay. And, but that was, I think, my brother and I were confirmed in the Catholic Church, but we never went to church. Our family went on Christmas maybe or Easter, and we're not very close to the Catholic Church. Okay. So when I met Margaret in high school, she was involved in the CE group at Westminster Press in San Jose. Okay. And so for an easy date, I used to take her to CE, and we had a good time there with the young people. And and when I was 16, I committed my life to Christ. Wow! And Dwight Small.
Dwight Small. Okay.
Dwight Small, a well-known Presbyterian minister, was the pastor there for a few years. Okay. And so he married us when we were young, and we were 19 and 20, or 18 and 19, something like that. Okay. Because the Korean War was wanting to draft me, and I ended up joining the Air Force. Okay. And we went from there together.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first met?
I remember our first date.
What was the first date?
We went to a movie at
You went to a movie?
The California Movie Theater on First Street in San Jose.
Okay.
And I think the movie was called Mary Lou, or the song.
My gosh, how would you remember that?
I remember the song.
You remember the song?
The song Mary Lou went with that.
Okay.
Anyway.
It was a big song then, that's for sure.
Sure.
And then we were very young, but 72 years later, we're still here. So
it's amazing.
We're very, very thankful. The Lord's,
Wow.
His grace is great.
Okay. Wow, that's great. Did you go off to the Korean War, and what were you doing during that time?
We were together and not together.
Sure.
It was just that he was traveling and here in different bases, but we had times when we were together, and that's one of the times when we were together and was in Japan.
Okay.
And so when we were first married, he went right off to base camp, and so we had 4 years in the military, and he had just started college and didn't have deferment, so then that was after the military, did the college years. But by then we had 3 children, so it was busy. But we were in Utah and Texas and finally Japan, and there were lots of times when he was gone, and I just lived with my folks until he came back.
Your folks, were they still in Campbell during that time?
They were still in Campbell.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was great. But then when he could have me in the base, then I would go be with him. So our second child was born in Japan. I went over on a ship, 2 weeks on a ship, a cruise, not a cruise ship. It was
Whoa.
a troop ship.
A troop ship. Wow.
And it was a 16-month-old, so that was a journey. But he met me in Japan, and then we went to our base.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious, what was your faith like during that time? Because it's so hard to be apart from each other in relationship. Also doing incredibly difficult things, whether that's traveling and being a mom by yourself or actually being enlisted.
It was always hard. We had 3 or 4 times when we were split up.
Yeah.
The longest when we were in Japan, and I was there about 8 or 9 months, and we didn't have housing there for the non-commissioned officers. I was a sergeant.
Okay.
And the commissioned officers took all the base housing that was available, and we didn't. Our non-commissioned officers didn't have any place to take families.
Oh.
And we did an unusual thing. We built mobile units on military property.
Okay.
We paid for the units, and I designed the unit. It was just a little 35 by 10 mobile home kind of thing.
Wow.
And the Japanese built that for us.
Yeah.
We had a contractor.
Okay.
And it cost us $1,000 to build that.
So you're the architect of your house.
I was the architect of it.
Okay.
And it was interesting to watch them build those things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we built 35 of those.
Okay.
And I was the number 5, got the number 5th unit.
Okay.
And we lived in that for 8 or 9 months, and then our housing came available on the base, so we moved on the base and sold our unit to a Navy man that wanted it.
But if we go back to our experience as faith-oriented, you were always in the chapel. You eventually became the assistant chaplain.
Wow, that was on the base?
Yeah.
Whoa,
We were involved with missionaries and...
Wow.
Yeah, in Japan we were in the chapel. When we were in the States, we were usually in a local church in the area.
Yeah.
But in the military in Japan, we were part of the chapel group.
Yeah.
And I have to say those churches were a big influence in our early Christian experience.
Yeah.
So they meant a lot to us. The first church where we met the Lord was very strong, and young families and couples were very important.
And that was the church in Saratoga, or that was a different church?
In San Jose.
Oh, in San Jose. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah, Westminster Press in San Jose.
Westminster
Well,
Press.
we committed our lives to Christ in that church, and then when we came back from the service, we went to that church, and we're part of a couples group called Voyagers. And as a matter of fact, we led the group and taught Bible study there for a while.
Wow.
And until we had some friends, we were living in Saratoga, driving to San Jose. 10 or 15 miles.
Got it.
And we had some friends that we were in Saratoga also, and he was an IBMer. And
he's an IBMer.
he invited me to join IBM, which I did.
Yeah.
And then he invited us to join them in this new church merger out in Saratoga. And
It actually wasn't a merger.
not
It was
a merger.
the starting,
It was a start.
church.
starting church.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were living in Saratoga at the time,
Yes.
but then attending church in San Jose,
Right.
Yeah.
and then
Right,
were
right.
invited to plant a church or start a church
Yes.
in Saratoga?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. We
Wow.
were.
Yes.
So there were about 8 or 10 couples that helped start that church
Uh-huh.
in Saratoga. And when we came back from the military, we built a home in Saratoga. So that's why
Got
we
it.
were there.
Yeah.
We had bought a lot when in 1948 when I graduated from high school. I wanted to build a house, so I found this property in Saratoga, a little lot, and I bought that, and that's where we ended up building the house when we got out of the service.
The greatest thing we ever did, to say the least.
Yeah?
It was a good investment.
It was a very good investment.
Yeah.
We had no idea what community we were moving into.
Sure. What did it look like at the time?
Orchard all
It was all
around.
orchard.
There were a couple streets where we were building, which was near the high school, which was great.
Oh,
It was
like
only a
downtown,
few
like Saratoga
blocks.
High School?
Well,
Saratoga.
Saratoga High.
Okay.
Yeah, it just had been built, and the Saratoga High, and there was just orchard everywhere. And of course, we grew up in Campbell, where there was nothing but orchard.
Right.
And this was called the Valley of the Heart's Delight. You know, it was just prunes and apricots, and
Uh-huh.
it was all around us. Kids all worked in the fruit,
Yeah.
cutting cots and picking prunes, and yeah, it was a great life.
Yeah.
Really, a lot of changes.
Sure has changed.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
We had a lot of fun meeting before we had a church facility. We met in homes and we met in different places for worship as we started to get more people.
Okay.
And we had a little theater in Saratoga, and we used to meet in that. That was part of the time we met in. And we had a little lady that used to come and cover the billboards over with sheets.
Because it was an art theater, and she didn't like the billboards.
Okay. So those would get covered up?
So they got covered up every
Okay.
week.
So
She
we
was a
worshiped
sweetheart.
there. We had an art center we worshiped in. We
Community center.
community center.
Okay.
And finally, we bought this property on Harriman Avenue and built a sanctuary there.
Okay. And this was in the 40s or 50s, or?
Well, it's been 60.
Late 50s,
Late
early
50s. Okay.
60s.
Our children were 3, 7, and 9 at
Okay.
that time. And most of the families were in our age group, maybe a little bit older.
Yeah.
And so the children went to worship with us, and we didn't have Christian ed. So even though the sanctuary might have been built, children were still going to different homes or places for Sunday school.
Got it.
Which we had at the time.
Okay.
So they go to Sunday school, we pick them up, bring them to church, then they go
Yeah.
to worship. And
Wow.
so they kind of grew up in worship, and that was a major part of their life. And
Sure.
always in Sunday school, and then later in youth groups, and active in a young life group in the high school, which was very, very active at that time.
Okay. Wow. And so at some point, that church, I assume, got a little bit bigger and had more people attending. It sounds like there were more young families, and maybe Saratoga, there were more people building in that area.
Yes, absolutely.
Our founding pastor is interesting. He was in the Second World War, and he was what they call a foxhole Christian.
Okay.
He came to know the Lord, I guess, in a foxhole. He said, "Lord, if you get me out of here, I'm going to serve you."
Wow.
And he did. And
Okay.
he was in Alaska with a little church when we called him to our church to be our founding pastor.
Okay.
And his name was John Stokes.
John Stokes.
And he, unfortunately, he died very young with a heart attack after he preached the Sunday morning sermon. He was in his 40s, I think, when
49, I think.
when he died.
Wow.
That was our founding pastor, though.
Yeah.
And that was our start.
Yeah.
But we grew to, I think, around 400 members
We did.
in the church.
Okay.
And but when we merged with Menlo, we might have been down to about 125, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It really.
We were getting older, everybody, our
Yeah.
kids had grown and moved away or gone off
Okay.
to college, and that was true with most all of the families, and
Yeah.
so it was becoming a much older congregation, and
Okay.
the ones that were a little younger were doing all the work, and that was hard, and it was just a difficult. We held together, and people were very loyal to the church and loved it, but it was
Yeah.
hard to keep it.
Right.
Well, and we weren't really reaching the community because we weren't reaching the young people, and that's what we wanted to do. And when we built the church, our commitment was to reach the high school across the street because
Right.
we were right across the street from the high school.
Right.
And that wasn't happening, and the ethnicity or the ethnicity in the community had changed, and we weren't able to seem to reach out to them.
Wow.
But we did reach the high school for a period of time.
Oh yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah,
Early on.
we used the high school facility for a while, and the high school used to come over and use our sanctuary. And we had a big luncheon for the dinners, for the teachers
Yes.
Oh.
every year, and so we were very closely connected with the high school.
Yes, we were.
And we had a large group of high schoolers that used to meet on Harriman Avenue,
Okay.
and but we invited them in, and
Yeah.
we had them in the fellowship hall. We had built the fellowship hall by then, and we had a youth pastor that would meet with them. And we met with them. And we were quite close with Young Life.
Yes,
Okay.
very
We had a
close.
large group of Young Life kids meeting in the church.
Yep.
About 100 kids
Yeah.
on Monday nights or something like that
Wow.
for a while.
Yeah.
And we were also very close with the scout troops, and we had
Yes.
scouts meeting
Yeah.
in our sanctuary and buildings.
So lots
Yeah.
of ways to involve the community.
Yes.
Get people
yes, there
involved
were.
there.
Not
Yeah.
as many as we could have or should
Okay.
have just because of the
Yeah.
energy or the years
Sure.
change.
Yeah.
When we were young and we were young couples, there were a group of us that used to meet and go bi-monthly out to the mental institution, which was
Oh,
in San
interesting.
Jose at the time.
Okay.
Was closed down, but we'd do hair and have birthday parties and
Yeah.
play games, and we reached out to the wives of the prison community,
Wow.
some at that time. So there was outreach,
Definitely.
but things change as
Yeah. So then
People.
how did Menlo get involved? So at this point there was a lot of people, then it sounded like some empty nesters, and
very much.
there was a drop in attendance, or however you want to say that. And then
yeah.
I think I was kind of instrumental in merging.
Okay.
I talked to our pastor was Steve Steele at the time, and we knew something had to be done, and even though we were financially stable, our church was in good shape financially. We thought we weren't reaching the community and we needed to do something. My idea was we would bring a young church that was trying to get started into our facility
Yep.
and merge with them and grow with the young people. As a matter of fact, we had a young youth pastor with us for a few years that got ordained, and he was starting a young church in San Jose. And so I was thinking, well, maybe something like that would be worked out.
Right.
And I guess Steve had some connections with pastors in Menlo, and so then that went from us bringing in a church, Menlo bringing us in as a church.
Right.
It kind of worked a little differently,
Yeah.
and it was bothersome to some people.
Sure.
What we were doing, and we did lose some members, but all in all, it's been a very good merger, and Menlo has been very thoughtful of the older people that have been there at the
Yeah.
church,
Good.
and they've refurbished a lot of the buildings, and it's grown since
Yeah,
Menlo
and
was
we're
merged.
getting, it's such a joy to us, old folks, to see young families there.
Oh,
Excuse me again.
that's okay.
Probably not good in the video.
Anyway,
That's
Sorry
all right,
about
no
that.
problem. I can cut that part out. Yeah.
Nowadays, now we see them. We have a courtyard. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's surrounded with fence and it's protected, and the kids just play and run around. And it's such a joy for us that had that when we were young.
Yeah.
To see that with these young families coming in, and we've reached a very large Asian population, and that's been a blessing. And and I've had a prayer ministry in that church for 35 years, and it's gone on. So Menlo's been very supportive.
Good. Can you paint the picture for me on what the first month or so of that merger was like? Was it an immediate, lots of people joined? Was there excitement? Was it hard? What was that time period like for you?
Well, it was very positive. I was concerned as an elder in the church, and I told Steve, I said, well, why don't we just try this for a few months?
A little trial period?
And see how this is going to work before we go all out and turn our facilities over to Menlo and turn over everything control to them. I said, let's just try it. Yeah. And Steve said, no, Menlo doesn't want to do that. We're going full bore. And it was great. The first Sunday we had 200 people, I think, in attendance, as I recall. And Menlo was wise, too. They had some people that were in Mountain View commit to coming to our facility for a while. And of course we got Scott Palmbush, who was at Mountain View, to be our first campus pastor. And so it started off with a real boom and really worked out. I was trying to remember, I think they did a lot of refurbishing before we had that first Sunday.
Okay.
And so there was some work in the bathrooms and the kitchen and the sanctuary.
And we were coming up here every week for services because it was closed down while they were redoing everything.
Got it.
Did that for just a short period.
Yeah, right. Interesting. It was, we have dear friends that left, and that's always hard.
That is hard.
And, in any church situation, and we've been in a lot of them, from the military and what we've gone through, people like different things, and churches will meet their needs differently. Yeah. And so some have left. Music has been an issue, and for some. And we used to always have organ and a choir and all of that, and things have changed. And yet we're so excited about the people we reach. I mean, that's what we're all about, right? Is to reach others for the Lord and see them come in and enjoy worship and become a part of a family. Yeah. And that's what I think Saratoga, in its past history, was always a family. Yeah. And our kids always felt when they came home back, they were coming to a family. And we hope it stayed similar and the same, for sure.
So I would say two major things happened. We saw a great influx of young people, which we were praying for would happen with Menlo merger. And then I also saw a large investment that Menlo has made in refurbishing the facility and keeping up the yard and all of that stuff that I spent a lot of time on with a group of volunteers. Yeah. We used to do a lot of work around the church.
Sure.
And we were called the Toolbox Crew. And
I need to start one of those for down here. You want to help me?
They did a lot.
Unfortunately, I'm not as able as I used to be. But Menlo has done a great job in both aspects, with the people and with the facility.
Wow. The facility always was kind of Tony's thing, and this group of men were wonderful. I mean, they would build ramps for widow people that were not able to get in the house, and stairs if they needed it, and help in any of that way, and then keep the rose garden up. I don't know if you've seen our rose garden.
It's beautiful.
Keep that up, and build cabinets, and build bookcases and anything.
Fences, we put the fence up.
All that fence
front.
around the property.
Storage area in the back we built.
Yeah. It was a great group. Great group.
Sounds like it.
But again, things change, ages change, and
Well,
you keep it up.
the advantage we had at that time is we had a lot of older people and we had a lot of retired people in the church. And so a lot of men that were capable were able to be on this toolbox crew. Today, we have mostly young people and they're all working. So you have weekends, which they need to be with their family, and it's difficult to get volunteers. Much more difficult than it was when we were an older church.
Yeah.
Wow. It sounds like you had been involved in the church in some capacity forever.
We have.
Yeah.
You ask our kids.
They'd say the same.
Yeah. We have. We've always, when we were young, I taught Sunday school. Then eventually Tony and I taught classes together. We had a marriage group together for years.
Wow.
He's taught Bible classes. I used to teach women's Bible classes.
Okay. Wow.
Then that sort of went out to women's retreats I did for about 10 years and led.
Oh, wow. That's
I
amazing.
don't know. We used to do the cooking in the church
Sure,
and putting the tables up and
Yeah.
moving things around. We did as a church. We did everything. We didn't have anybody doing things. We just did it ourselves.
Wow.
We had a time. I don't know how long it was. Maybe 8 or 9 years. Where in the summer, we had a week-long family camp. We called it at the church every night. With a dinner, everybody
Really?
came.
Family
And then they would have different classes from investments to bicycle repair to, I don't know, bridge to, and the kids all signed up and the children were in classes and very, very special time.
It was called Family Affair.
Yeah, it was Family Affair.
Okay.
And it was week long every year for 10 years, maybe.
Wow.
9 years, yeah. But eventually,
We'd meet every night for dinner and social time together.
yeah, a little worship and
Sure.
then just have the classes, which was really a fun thing.
It
But it takes a lot of work, right?
does.
Those kind of things
course.
take a lot of
It's
work.
pretty involved.
And I think things changed. Like I look back and I think about the Bible study, women's Bible studies I had for so many years. But then things began to change where women began to work. I was an at-home mom. Most of my friends were at-home moms. Those years were over, and more couples, both were working. And so you didn't have day Bible studies like we had when I was a young woman. So things began to just be different, and you just go along with the difference and try to do the best you can,
Wow.
doing it in different ways.
Yeah. And it seems like just like a lifetime of involvement in serving and helping out. And so for those people that might not be involved now, how did being involved in the church, whether that's volunteering your time or your expertise in building, how did that affect you and your relationship with God? What encouragements would you give someone that's like, I want to get involved, but I'm not sure yet?
Well, for me, I would think if you've committed your life to Christ, you want to be a part of the body of Christ. And so you, just like a family, everybody has jobs, everybody does their part, everybody participated, there's communication, right? There's things you need to deal with, things that you don't always agree on, but you deal with them and you work them through. And that was just something we grew up in as a young couple.
Okay.
That you don't just go to church on a Sunday. You're there, you work, you participate. Where we met the Lord, we had Sunday night service, we had Wednesday night prayer group and dinner. Our kids all went to Sunday school as they grew up. Youth groups were a part. It just was a family thing you did and you committed to.
Okay.
And it was just natural, I guess. If my children were here, you could ask them. They're participants in their church, and they feel they want to do their part for the Lord, and so serve in whatever way they can.
That's good.
And to us, it's not just going on Sunday, it's a life commitment.
Wow.
And our kids would say, "Oh, I don't want to go to church." And you have to go to school, you got to go to church. That's just a part,
Okay.
a part of our life. That's what we do.
Oh, yeah. Tony, anything to add to that?
I don't think there's much to add to that. Church was actually, yes, it was a part of our life and our lives.
Okay.
That was always the way it was when we were in the service, in our first married years, and it continued that way when we were discharged and started the church here. I taught Sunday school for many years, adult classes and Bible study, which I loved. I loved the history of the church and, of course, the Gospels. But I really love the Old Testament, and I spent a lot of time doing that. And I wish I could do it today, but my hearing is so bad, I really cannot participate too well in group activities. I don't hear well enough. But it was a great time in our lives, and church was always the main part of our lives, really.
Sure. Wow.
When we started the church, I have to say it was a faith lesson for me particularly.
Yeah.
I think Tony was gung ho on let's starting and these young couples that we were doing and new work and participating, but I had a great familiarity with women in the other church, and stepping out in faith and starting a new work was not easy.
Yeah.
And it's similar as we join Menlo, right? That's another step of faith that you take and say, if God's calling us to do this, that's what we'll do. I can't say for me it was always easy, particularly when we started our church. But God used it in our lives, I think, mightily. And there were a lot of lessons we learned.
Yeah.
So,
wow. And you've been around for almost all of it. I mean,
well, we have.
Yeah. You've been around the church since it started, and then through the merger with Menlo, and you've seen so much. So what are your hopes for Menlo going forward? I mean, we're capturing these conversations as we're celebrating our 150th year anniversary, which is crazy that you've been there for almost half of that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 63 years.
What would your hopes be for the next 150 years for Menlo?
Well, I hope Menlo is successful in getting churches all around the Bay Area and really having an impact in this Bay Area in Silicon Valley. It's a great challenge and a difficult area too to bring church into. So it's a tough challenge, but boy, that would be beautiful to see.
Yeah.
A Bay Area for Christ.
Definitely.
It really would.
Yeah.
And of course, isn't that what the church is all about, is to reach out to those. And I guess the church is always wondering, how do we do that? They're always reevaluating, right? What's the best way to reach the community around them? I don't have that answer.
That's okay.
I don't really know how you do it.
Yeah.
I think we're doing well now. And word of mouth seems to be getting around, but we sure could do a lot more. And one of the things I would like to see personally, and I think we both feel this way, is just growth in the Word and the knowledge of it and the importance of prayer, and that it isn't just a Sunday thing. Your faith is a daily thing. And people are so busy today, it's hard to commit to a lot of the things the church might even offer that are out there. But there's sports on Sundays, and which we didn't have when our kids were growing up. They had sports, but they weren't competing against Sunday.
Yeah.
So maybe we're too old to figure out what's the best way to do it. We leave it in your young people's hands.
But, I have to say, I think sports are important. And sports are a very big factor in young people's development.
Yeah, it is.
I agree.
They learn how to win and lose. They learn how to work together. They learn a lot of things that are important to life.
Yeah.
And but it's difficult when they're on Sunday mornings
Definitely.
when we have church also. We used to have sports. Our girls played softball in
Our son.
in high school, and they played after school, and after school hours the teams played, not on Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up playing in a basketball. I played basketball pretty much my whole life.
Oh, you did?
And we would have our sports. Our church had a team growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd play with different churches in the area. And our
baseball.
games were always Sundays, but they would be Sunday afternoons.
Okay.
So all of us could go to church.
Yeah.
And I've been hoping and wanting to do for a while of having campus teams at
Oh, that'd be
Menlo
fun.
that we could play against each other. So if you're interested,
Well, can you
Love
see
you.
us? Can you see us?
you
Yeah.
could root us on.
He used to play baseball on
Okay.
our church team.
Yeah.
Basketball and baseball.
Oh, you did basketball too.
And we always had a church league in San Jose. and
Right.
We competed, and it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great bonding thing.
really is.
You know, it's just really, really great.
Yeah, and we mentioned before reaching out to the community,
That's
getting others
right.
involved, and I think that's a
Yeah.
great way to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We had all our games in the evenings, and some at night. Some places where they had lights, we played at night
Yeah.
on softball teams. So
Yeah, that's fun.
So
I
it
think
was-
it's really fun.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Margaret and Tony. This has been a really fun time. Is there anything else, as you've been thinking about the history, any other stories that you'd like to share? Anything else you'd like to add? You don't have to, but here's some space to do so if you'd like to.
I have a little one. There used to
Sure.
be a group of women, probably, I don't know, 6 of us that would meet every Tuesday at our home in Saratoga, praying for a witness in the community. Some were Young Life moms, some were at different churches, some were helping just in different areas. And then this new work came, and this came to us. Will you be willing to help start this church? And I thought, no, I don't really want to do that. I mean, we've been praying for this maybe
Yeah.
for a couple of years, and this opportunity, and I thought, I don't want to leave where I am. And yet God kept pushing and saying, well, you've been praying for it, Margaret. What do you, are you not going to step out in faith and do it?
Yeah.
And so Tony was very positive about it, and we did it. But so prayer has been a major part of that ministry in the church. And we did have a pastor whose wife got very ill with cancer and was dying. And so we started kind of a regular weekly, not something just spasmodically. And that's been going for close to 40 years, probably.
Wow.
And so COVID hit, and that was a struggle. And what do we do with that? And how do we keep going? And
Right.
this whole new technology of Zoom came in. And
Yeah.
what do we do with Zoom? And so we did it, and we've been going, and it's a faithful group of people.
Wow.
I'm very thankful for each and every one of them.
I would like to add that we've seen many miracles that God has performed in our lives since the very beginning. The fact of my going into the service, I had a little bit of training in the machine shop, and I advanced in rank quickly. The fact that we bought this property in Saratoga, the fact that we joined a new church work in Saratoga. God worked many miracles in our lives. We look back, and even at the time, we recognized some of these things. I got an education here at San Jose State when we had 3 children, and I was working and going to school and building a house, and God provided for us, and we saw just so many miracles anyway.
Wow.
God has been good to us and blessed us abundantly, not only with church friends and church work that we've done, but with family and friends. We've been blessed abundantly.
Well, abundantly in that we had 3 children. We have 10 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
And 22 great-grandchildren. So I would say not only
You could start your own church.
what the church did, but what our family did, an explosion. And they are a great blessing to us.
Amazing.
We have great joy in that family.
Certainly have our own baseball team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for your willingness to share. I'm thankful that your faithfulness has impacted so many, whether that's saying yes to God, to helping, plant a church or start a church or literally build a church. It's an amazing story, and I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation. So thank you both.
Thank you for asking us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad and thankful that Menlo is interested enough to want to know about the history of the church that was there before they merged.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of precious to us, that church. That's our
Of
home.
course. Of course.
And
it
so
is.
those 62 years of history or whatever is very important. So
And we don't hold that
appreciate-
lightly. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. It
Thank
means
you
a
very
lot
much.
to us. It really does.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both.
Well, we've enjoyed it. I don't know with my voice if this is all. Oh, Debbie. Well, that's our daughter. Sure.